Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is former Mountain West Conference football star for BYU, David Nixon. David, it's been forever. Welcome back to the program.
It has been a minute. How's it going, guys?
We are well, and we would love to hear your opinions on like 17 different things. So let's get right to it. Starting with our question of the day. Which former Mountain West Conference opponent would you like to see on BYU's football schedule every year?
So can you throw in TCU and Utah? Is that part of the
poll? That's the idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that changes everything, right? I mean, 100%. Well, first of all, it's got to be Utah. That's obvious. I think, that should be not part of the poll. But, yeah, TCU. No doubt I would love to play TCU. I'm all about playing the best opponents. And yeah, your schedule might suffer from it. But that's the only way BYU will ever get better. Otherwise, we're just kind of going to be hovering that mediocrity range. And so I'm all about playing TCU and going down to Texas. I think playing, down there every other year, if we were able to schedule that way, opens up that pipeline for the Texas recruiting, gets more exposure down there in that state. And so I'd be all about TCU. Second place would probably be, Boise State wasn't in the Mountain West when I played in the Mountain West. So former Mountain West, I'd say probably San Diego State as well. I like San Diego State. I mean, listen, as a player, you get to go down to San Diego maybe in November, December. That's never a bad time. So
now, you didn't say Wyoming, and there's a report that the Cougars and Cowboys may meet in a home and road series. What do you think of that?
Terrible. You guys know how I feel about Wyoming.
That's why we got you on today.
No, I'm just playing. Listen, Wyoming's, they're up and coming. Josh Allen obviously helped propel them to kind of what they've been the last few years. But in the bowl game, the Poinsettia Bowl with Wyoming was a fun one, obviously. So I don't hate it. I just hate Laramie. And, just my
They just got an Applebee's, David.
Yeah. Well, you still have to stay at the truck stop unless they finally got a hotel in the whole city. So
we've learned that there are some new hotels in Laramie.
Can they fit a football team? That's the question. Or is it?
We don't know the answer. We'll get our
50 people.
We'll get our research team on this.
We'll get the voice of the Lyman Eagles to tell us that at Cougar_Nate.
Yeah, we're not looking at
it. Let us know. Okay, speaking of more Mountain West opponents, BYU and Boise State are going to play on Saturday this year on ESPN. Do you like BYU Boise State on an ESPN channel in the rare Saturday matchup?
Love it. I love it. That's when football should be played. And I know that traditionally in the past it's been a Thursday or Friday game, which, yeah, is great. The whole country's watching. There's some exposure. But keep in mind, usually those Friday games, there's usually a doubleheader, right? And there's an East Coast game, and then the West Coast game will come on at like 8:30 p.m. And so the East Coast people aren't seeing the game anyway. So football should be played on Fridays. And frankly, I remember playing on some Thursdays as a player, both collegiately and NFL. It's tough. It's tough on your body because you get guys banged up on Saturday, and by the time, if a game's rolling around on Thursday, a lot of guys aren't healed. And I know the NFL's thrown a huge stink about it. The players have. I remember Richard Sherman got injured on a Thursday night game, and he had some, voiced his opinion as always. But I think there's a lot of truth to it. Your body's just not ready to play 4 or 5 days later after you just went through a game. So I like the move to Saturday. Like I said, that's when football should be played. And of course, with it being on ESPN Network, they'll still have the national exposure, but on a Saturday, and it doesn't create issues traveling. And then if you're playing at Boise, if you're playing at Boise State, you don't have to have excuses that you had to leave a day early, and there's not that whole issue at hand. So I'm all about the Saturday games.
Yesterday we discussed how many guaranteed wins there are on the schedule. We differed by 1 in our number. Spencer said 3. I said 4. What do you think?
0.
McNeese State is not a guaranteed win, David.
Listen, we thought UMass last year was a guaranteed win. No, I think you probably have. I think you probably have four games that should be guaranteed. I'm telling you, I'm hesitant to say anything. Although I do think Grimes and his offensive staff, looking what happened with spring ball, I think they're on the right track, and I think they'll be able to produce points and be able to get some production out of the offense. But I tell you, it's tough because I think a lot of these teams will look at last year's team and now they have a kind of built-in confidence, saying, this is a team that limped into the finish line last year and struggled, didn't make a bowl game. And, while we had them scheduled out 3-4 years in advance, we have an opportunity to go up there and upset them. And so a team like McNeese State will come to Provo and have some confidence riding with them. So until BYU can prove them different, and unless BYU can go out against Arizona or Cal or Wisconsin and put together a great game and upset maybe Wisconsin or even down there at Arizona, all these teams will feel like they can come in and beat us, including your Utah States and Northern Illinois as you move down the schedule.
Okay, this just in from the BYUSN crack research staff. Laramie now has your choice of Holiday Inn, 3 stars, Hilton Garden Inn, 3 stars, and Best Western, 2 stars. So there's a significant upgrade in the city. Your thoughts?
Significant. Yeah, you don't have to stay at the truck stop where your door opened up to the outside and there was all sorts of things going on at 2 a.m. Yeah, that's a significant upgrade.
The Hilton Garden Inn it is.
Stories for off the air.
David Nixon with us on BYU Sports Nation, former NFL linebacker and an outstanding player.
And lover of Laramie.
In the Mountain West Conference. After spring football, how were you feeling about BYU football? And maybe that has changed over the past couple of weeks, but what are you feeling about the current status of BYU football now that the spring has wrapped up?
Listen, I'm confident. I mean, going to practices, going to the spring game, you can tell it's just a completely different identity. Jeff Grimes has come in; he's instilled that discipline that this team so badly needed. And not only is it on the offensive side of the ball, but I think that discipline he's bringing is also kind of filtering onto the defense side of the ball. I think Kalani stepped it up as well. Elisa as well. So I'm optimistic. It's a whole different attitude down there, and it gets me excited. Of course, I know a lot of fans get bugged about the preseason hype, and I'm not saying BYU's going to go undefeated by any means, but it is a different mood and a different feeling down there. And finally, you've got a coaching staff that's got a ton of experience as well. You look at Jeff Grimes, and he's got experience being basically a co-offensive coordinator down there at LSU and calling the run game. But you've got guys like Festus Take, that was offensive coordinator at Weber State, that has coached a lot of games. Aaron Roderick, who was, offensive coordinator at Utah. I mean, you got a lot of experience around Jeff Grimes. So when the time does arise that they're facing an issue against Arizona or Wisconsin, a different defensive concept than maybe they prepared for, you've got guys up in the box and on the field that can chime in and say, hey, based on my experience, this is how we're going to attack that defense. And that's something that Ty's offense unfortunately just didn't have. You didn't have a ton of experience. Yeah, you had some coaches that coached at one point at BYU, but not a lot of guys that got experience outside of BYU. And so I'm excited about this offense, and I think their new identity that they're forming at this time will only continue to kind of solidify throughout the summer and hopefully roll into fall ball and into the season.
David, which team do you want to draft Fred Warner this weekend?
It's not necessarily a team. It's more of a system. Fred needs to go to a 4-3 where he can showcase his speed on the outside. I think if he goes to a 3-4 where they try to stick him in the middle, because in a 3-4, he's definitely not an outside linebacker in a 3-4. Those guys are going to be more of your stand-up defensive ends, right? So it needs to be a 4-3, a will backer, that they can get him out in coverage, kind of like what he did at BYU, and be able to showcase his speed. So, maybe a 3-4 team tries to take a chance on him. I would hate to see that. I think he really belongs in a 4-3. But if you're Fred or if you're any BYU fan, it's more about how soon does he get picked rather what team he goes to. Because the sooner you get picked kind of shows how much the team, how much faith they have in you and how soon you'll play. If you're a first or second rounder, you're almost guaranteed a starting spot. Then as you start to slip in the rounds, third, fourth, then you become kind of a backup special teams guy. So, if he goes in the first couple of days or even early in the third round, it's a good sign. You'll see him playing a lot on Sundays.
Cumulative projection has Warner going somewhere just inside the top 100. We wait and see. David, great stuff. Book your room at the Hilton Garden Inn Laramie now before it's too late.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.